Hi, I'm Tracy Costa, President and CEO at ATHENA International, and I'm in Ogden, Utah. And it has been an incredible visit, wonderful hosts, and I'm joined by 3 past ATHENA Award recipients. And if you wouldn't mind, just introduce yourselves and share with us a little bit about what you do here.
Well, I am Raquel Da Silva, and I was ATHENA on 2022. For Ogden Chamber of Commerce. Mm-hmm. And I am the Executive Director for Family Promise. And Family Promise is a shelter for homeless families. So that's what I do.
Thank you for that. That's incredible.
Thanks.
It's important work that you're doing.
Yeah, we love our families and see the success that they have.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you. Really?
Yes, I am Kimberli Green. I was ATHENA in 2020 for the Ogden Weber Chamber of Commerce. Uh-huh. My official title for my day job is Vice President of Business Development and Services for America First Credit Union in Ogden, Utah. And part of my opportunity to be involved in both my organization and the community as a female leader and bring others up with me and make sure that they have the same opportunities to shine that I have. I'm very active in Boys and Girls Club of Weber Davis. It's something passionate and near and dear to my heart, as well as work with Weber School Foundation, supporting all of the children in that district, and military affairs for our Hill Air Force Base and the servicemen and women up there.
Amazing. Yeah. That's incredible.
Lots of things going on.
Well, I always think of you as somebody who does what she wants.
I do.
Sort of the tagline. I do what I want.
I do what I want. Yes.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, I'm Adrienne Andrews, and I was ATHENA in 2017. And instead of saying we became ATHENA, right? I became an ATHENA. That's right. In 2017. And my day job is being the Vice President of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion and Chief Diversity Officer at Weber State University. And then, like Kimberli, like just everyone here who does this work, I've got my fingers in lots of little pots, including Boys and Girls Club of Weber Davis, the Davis County Conviction Integrity Unit, the Second Judicial Nominating Commission for Judgeships in the region, and there's probably 4 or 5 others, including the McCady and Layton hospital boards, which are incredible ways of providing resources and services to folks in our community who may not be aware of the access and opportunities that exist.
That's
and of course, I'm about educating folks anywhere, anytime, any way I can.
That's amazing. Well, because we're constantly learning, right?
We should be.
Yeah. Right? The 8 principles. It's wonderful to have you here. Obviously, you all embody the 8 principles of enlightened leadership, and you're living it in your communities and representing it and being there. Tell me a little bit about maybe some of the challenges that you're seeing here in the local community with the youth or with women that you think that we need to kind of work towards improving for them.
Well, I can start.
Yeah.
You guys are looking at me. I guess I am going to start. One of the things that I see as a challenge in the community is in the homeless. The families are the growing sector within homelessness that is growing the fastest. It's kind of like hard to see, because as children become homeless, 80% of children suffer with things like anxiety or worrying all the time about what's going to happen to my family. Are we going to be safe? Am I going to have a home again? And that directly impacts their performance at school and their connections with the whole entire community. You know, homelessness is not just a one part or one group of people issue, it's a community issue. So the disparity between how much you make and how much things cost, especially in the last couple of years, had really been a challenge in our community. The good thing about Ogden, Utah is that we have so many organizations, nonprofit organizations that are providing, and we are a close knit, so we helping each other all the time in different areas. But it's such an amazing thing to see that even though we have all of this work going on, we still so very challenged in the issue of homelessness.
Yeah, and even with 900 nonprofits here in your community, and some of the key collaborations that are happening to help with that.
It's a complex context, homelessness, because it's not just about not having a home. It's an issue about mental health also, and how it affects. And sometimes it can be generational.
Yeah.
So it's important that we all pay attention of how we can help to resolve the problem.
Yeah.
It will not come, I believe, in one solution fits all. I think we have to be creative, think outside the box, help each other, be kind to one another. One of the things that I teach our homeless families is that you are not homelessness because it has such a bad stigma. Right. I said you are a person of worth and you are experiencing homelessness.
Yes.
It helps them to have some perspective
Born
about
worthy.
their worth.
Born worthy. Yes. Don't have to earn it, do we?
Right.
But sometimes we do. We think we have to earn it.
Absolutely.
Right. That's a common issue right now.
Something as a challenge that popped into my mind. So my day job's in the corporate world, and what I find that is some of the principles that are relative to my world is fostering collaboration. So it's a very competitive landscape when you are a female in the corporate world, and you find yourself fighting for resources or just working so hard to climb that corporate ladder. And maybe it's easy to have blinders on and leave others behind. And part of my success that I attribute it is trying to bring others with me. So for example, if I worked on a project or I have been through an experience that I learned and grew from, then I share that with my network. Yeah. Here's what worked for me. Here are some resources, and bring others along and help them in their own path in that mentor-mentee facility. And it's okay, because if I succeed, there's still room for Adrienne to succeed. It doesn't have to be
a competition.
It doesn't have to be a competition, because there's enough success for everyone, and how she shines is going to be different than how I do. So I have found, by opening myself up to that part of the ATHENA leadership principles, that has helped me, not just helped others, but I have seemed to rise quicker, because that is the mindset that I have. And in relation to my community involvement, the children of Boys and Girls Club, when their parents are so busy working to make ends meet, to avoid homelessness or to provide for their children, they sometimes don't have the ability to provide that example. So because I've been very blessed in my life, I have 2 young boys at home, it hits close to my heart, that if I can be that advocate and support, and they can see there is a woman that is successful and she's choosing to give of her time and talent with me, then I'm leading the example for those, and hopefully creating a future where those children can be that for someone someday.
Absolutely.
So those are the 2 principles.
And the ones that work with you we all know that you live what you preach. So
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I'm very passionate about it. There's people say I'm too busy, or I don't have time, or I get that comment a lot. You serve on a lot of boards. How do you find time to do it? We all have the same number of hours in the day.
Yeah,
it's how you prioritize that time. And it really is, I get so much back by giving to those organizations that, I don't have a lot of free time, but I don't feel like my free time would be as fulfilled if I wasn't doing it. I have done it for so long, and it's something ingrained in my heart that I can't imagine not doing it. So I'm passionate about it.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Well, you've really made service a significant part of who you are.
100%.
In any aspect of your life, whether that's your personal life or your work life.
Yeah, I like to when those worlds combine together.
Yeah.
So I I sort of see two really important areas coming forward. One is not one that personally impacts me. I have one child, and my partner and I have the ability to have one person stay at home. Childcare and access to quality, safe childcare that's affordable. Because the other component of this is, if you have to use childcare, the costs are so high, prohibitively high. And in fact, some people don't work because they can't afford the childcare because it's as much, if not more, than what they would be able to make. And so until we address that fundamental issue, it really disadvantages women because of the way our culture is structured and how we see family work and the care of children as women's work, right? So addressing that component. And I believe helping employers understand how much stronger and better the workforce is when we can provide resources and connections to improve childcare options for families. That means we have employees who are more loyal to organizations, who are more productive, who have less illness in their homes, all of these sorts of things that positively impact business. At the same time, I'm also looking very broadly at equity, diversity, and inclusion, and how easy it is, not just for women, but really for any groups, to sort of stick to the folks that you know. And it's so important for us to keep ourselves open and willing to engage other
100%.
folks, other perspectives, other ways of seeing and understanding the world. And that is really the business case for equity, diversity, and inclusion. And we know that corporations and industries that are more engaged in these practices have better retention, better return on investment. They have, greater market reach, all of the sorts of things.
Higher performers.
Yes, that we say that we want.
Yeah.
And so there's some tension around EDI work and whether or not, in my mind, I see EDI work as sort of the golden rule of how we operate in society. And some people see it as something else that's very different. And so as long as I remind people what I'm talking about when I use those terms and how it helps all of us to move forward, how it helps all of us have better opportunities and experiences.
It really betters our community. I mean, when I think about the enlightened leadership model and collaboration, when I first met Adrienne, so I was on the interview panel when she was selected for ATHENA, and I knew from the moment I met her that she was a shining light that was doing so much in the community that I had no idea existed. And I am so appreciative of the relationships that the Chamber of Commerce cultivates because it allows a space where we can connect our networks. And I don't have to miss out on what she's doing or what Raquel's doing because now our networks are combined and there's strength in bringing that attention to all of our communities, because there's 3 individual communities even just represented in this panel. And when you make the comment that it betters the whole, that impacts me a lot because it does. It's not just one person you're improving. It really does make our entire community a better place to be.
Oh, for sure. We're so much stronger together.
Yes, absolutely.
And finding ways to collaborate and think out of the box and looking at, to your point, a couple of things. One is that diversity is not an initiative because an initiative has a beginning and an end.
That's right.
It's a culture shift. You need to shift the culture, and to shift the culture, you need to have all voices at the table.
Absolutely.
And you need to be able to have the types of conversations that are involving the people that are impacted. And you don't know how they're being impacted unless you're talking with them and you have them at the table with a voice, right? And so many times I think that we don't look at the systems and the processes that we have in place, like childcare, right? One of our past national or global organizational awards was for SAS, and they've had childcare on campus for 25 years now. And so, I think that that's important for companies and organizations to look at what processes and barriers that we have, but you need to have everybody at the table to figure out what those really are.
Absolutely. I think that these issues that we see in the community are not isolated issues. We cannot work in silos. For example, when I work with the families, the homeless families, it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. Of course, I want to work, but I don't have daycare. But if I work, I still cannot afford daycare.
Right.
And if I start in a job, especially particularly for women, who will give me an opportunity? Who will bring me up? Who will say, okay, I'm going to give you a chance. Maybe you haven't worked for 10 years, or maybe you only have high school diplomas. So we do need each other to participate and collaborate and create this network among each other and among these issues so we can together come up. Because I don't think there's one solution fits all, and we need everybody's strength to come up as a whole at the end.
For sure. Yeah.
Isn't the quote, I think, rising tides lift all boats?
Yes.
I love that.
Yes, that is perfect quote.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And one of my good friends, Paula Rio Tate, author, she says, and women are that tide. Yeah. And it's true. It's, and particularly in male dominant fields. Have you come up against some resistance, and how have you dealt with that in some of the industries that you've been, or struggles or challenges that you've had as a woman in whatever experience and career in your past have you had that come up?
So it's a really interesting question. And I think sometimes it operates differently for different individuals. For myself, I didn't find a life partner till later in life, didn't have a child until way later in life. And then Kimberli threw me the best baby shower ever with Women in Business. But because of that, obstacles that a lot of women face in early career roles, I didn't have to deal with. But also as a woman in a Black body, sometimes people don't see my womanness. They literally see me as a worker. And so questions about women weren't really questions people worried or asked about me. When I got married, people were like, wait, what? What's going on? And I was like, yeah, I'm a human. I like to love and be loved. This is good stuff. So some of the things that I deal with now, people are much more resistant to pushing back on. So again, I have a 4.5-year-old right now. I'm 49. And I go to every single one of my kids' doctor appointments. My husband takes him, but I meet them there, right? And I said, that's going to be the way it is. No one else sitting around that executive table at the university has little kids. They have grandchildren and maybe some college student-aged kids, but no one's got pre-K running around their house or trying to upset their apple cart. So when I bring those issues to that group, they now have to look at the larger institution and say, oh, well, wait a minute, because that's not just happening in this space. Right. It's happening in all of these spaces. And now, because we've had all kinds of social changes, men can take paternity leave, right? And so how do we make sure that those pieces aren't used against people? And that they don't become a mommy track or a daddy track.
Right.
And instead, how do we make sure that we not only have a balance, but have equity? So if somebody does stop out for childcare or a medical issue or something else, that when they come back in, they're not penalized for being human.
Right.
And so for me, that work is very important. It's very important that we see the whole person and we recognize that we do not know what's going on with anyone until we talk to them.
Oh, right.
Absolutely. And it's kind of interesting because I also have a 4.5-year-old. And usually when I go to a board meeting or I have something, no one has a child. And this is very interesting when we talk about being inclusive and talking about different groups. For some, the idea was like, okay, you have children when you're young and you're at an age that you shouldn't have a 4-year-old. But who says that? Who set those rules?
Yeah.
And our needs are also important in understanding. And definitely sometimes we just think, okay, when we think about inclusivity, we think about, race is the only thing that comes in, but it's also about so many other things like age and different things, disabilities,
yes.
so many other things that take into the matter. And it's so important that we have these conversations. Because I think sometimes when we get into the hard spot is because we're not talking about it.
Right.
Because it's like with mental
the
health.
elephant in the room that nobody wants to bring up, right?
It is so hard to talk about it. We would rather make it even more difficult by not talking about it so that we don't have to address each other versus saying, let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Right. And okay, if we put it out there, if we can trust that the folks in this conversation are coming with positive intent, let's see what we can do to move the needle, right? We don't have to solve the problem 100% today, but what can we do to find a platform that we can come together on to move the needle to make things better for everyone?
Right.
Suddenly, there's oxygen in the room again.
Absolutely.
Well, there's room for progress to be made. So I am in a position quite frequently where, so at America First Credit Union, it's predominantly female. But in the upper ranks, in our executive level, so there are 35 vice presidents and 22 of them are female. And we have a female executive vice president. So outside of CEO, I see that representation, and I work for an organization that I feel cultivates that support, male versus female. What I find personally is, I already talked a little bit about the competitive nature, but when I'm serving on boards, at other organizations, I don't see a lot of females in executive leadership. These two individuals that I'm sitting next to are the exception in my experience. So even when we look at it from a Chamber of Commerce point of view, when I want to network with other female executives, that's hard to find right now. And when I sit as an executive officer on a board, sometimes I'm the only female voice represented. And I recognize the importance of that and work really hard to make that known, that because I won't be on that board forever, and participate and use my voice so I can bring that value that we have. And they see that value and recognize that they're not blind to that. So if they do have an all-male board, that I have made it known that that's not where the best work happens, not because the male is present, it's because the female perspective is lacking. And if you look at our community, we have a lot of females in all levels. And it's important for, I feel like, me to be that voice and example so others know, like, oh, I could do that too. I see Kimberli, why can't I do that? And show that there's really not some magic sauce. It's that I'm willing to raise my hand and be in uncomfortable situations because I believe in the power of using my voice and what we all have to bring to the table. And the flip side of that is I have 2 young boys at home. I keep saying young, but they're teenagers. And the world in which we live in is not going to be easy for them. It's not just hard whether you're female or male. It's going to be difficult and changing times. So I need to be that example for them so they can be a male advocate and understand the positivity that comes with that and the importance of it, because they will have never walked a mile in the shoes of a woman. They need to have seen that, and for me to share with them why it's sometimes difficult for my voice to be heard because of that. And that's important. I'm very passionate, and Adrienne mentioned that I do what I want. In my home life, I'm very into animals. I'm an equestrian and I'm very independent. And people often make the assumption that because of the work that comes with those animals, that my husband must do the heavy lifting. And I become very offended by that, because I'm capable of doing anything. I might not have the muscle to lift a certain weight, but I take care of everything on my own. I drive my truck and my trailer. I take care of the animals morning, noon, and night, rain or shine. And my husband, not because he wouldn't, he would do anything to support me, but I'm very capable. And it makes me feel frustrated when people make an assumption.
Yep.
And so because of how that small piece makes me feel, it drives my fire. It ignites me to make sure that whether it's homelessness or a female or race or any of those things, that we shouldn't make assumptions based on those things.
Those
That
unconscious biases are
it's a
quite
big
a barrier.
deal. And I should be able to use my voice and not be considered intimidating. That's
Right.
something else.
Oh, I would
absolutely.
love to not be considered intimidating.
Because I share my opinion. And so I just continue to do it, to be the example that I shouldn't be looked upon. That Taylor Swift song, If I Were a Man, sometimes I blast that so loud because if I were a man in an executive board sharing an opinion, it would be fine. Sometimes as a female, it comes across as something different.
Yes.
So these are all little things that...
What do you think? What do you think the shift is? How we're going to shift this?
I think that keep having these conversations. I think that's the way. I haven't experienced the male-female roles really in the workplace because I work in a nonprofit, and usually social work has been kind of like a female type of profession. But where I see this shift is when I say I'm a counselor and I provide counseling for abused children. And very often I get oh, that's hard work. And that's the end of the conversation. No one wants to get into like, tell me more about it. What's happening in our community? What's going on? It's a taboo. Mental health is still very taboo. Like the disparity in between the pay between women and men and all of these things. We need to keep having these conversations. We need to keep talking about it. I teach my clients in counseling that sometimes when we do not talk about these important issues, the issue grows.
Yes.
It's actually by speaking out, by advocating, by teaching, by engaging, is that we minimize the force of the fear, because this is fear-driven.
Yeah.
Well,
I
ignorance
couldn't
is
agree
not
more.
bliss.
No.
It doesn't get, you can't put it away or smother it. It will just continue to build.
And fester.
Yeah.
Right, is the way that I think about it. And
Shine a light on it.
you shine a light on it, but then you don't just shine a light and move on. You shine a light on it and you say, so this is what we know.
Yep.
What are we going to do about it? How can we respond differently to get the outcome that we think we should be getting?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that is really hard for some people.
Yeah.
I think of my own experiences, and I've been in spaces where people say, all you talk about is race, class, and gender, and it's just...
I'd love to be in a position where we don't have to have that conversation.
Wouldn't that be great?
And
Right?
my response to that was, I will keep talking about all of those things until you do.
Till
Like,
action.
I shouldn't have to be the only one asking those questions or pointing those things out. And helping people understand that, for me at least, EDI work is for all of us. And again, not something that is an initiative, not something that you add on to the end of a syllabus, not something that you put on your lists of one day.
Yeah.
Equity, diversity, and inclusion is a way of living in society together.
Yes.
And at least here in the United States, we are a democratic republic. And as such, what does that mean for how we treat each other, how we talk to each other, how we minimize or erase or ignore things for some folks, but not for others?
Right.
And when we say things like injustice for all, how is it the same justice, right? But those are difficult, uncomfortable conversations to have that people are afraid of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in my mind, the first thing is we own what we own. Did we have this happen? Did we have this in our past? Yes. What are we going to do so that that is not our present and future?
Right.
And that's where the power is.
Absolutely.
But people are so afraid of addressing that core issue because then you're going to blame me. This is my fault, even though I had nothing to do with it. What you have to do with it is right here and now determining whether or not your actions will continue to perpetuate a system or a structure or if it will help transform it.
Be part of the solution.
Be
Part of the solution. Yeah, and don't come with just the problems. Come with, okay, these are the challenges, but
here's some ideas.
Yes.
I learned from my parents that you always want to take a problem to someone with a possible solution, at least one or two ideas.
It's great career advice.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Right?
Life advice.
Because you're trying to figure out, okay, what's going on? Here's this issue. Here's one or two ways that we can approach it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
What does our institutional integrity tell us we should be doing to address this gap or, this policy problem?
Yeah.
And then we have tools to do something about it. We are actually allowed to be our best selves when we are willing to ask the hard question.
And hold space for the answer, for the response.
And hold space for answers that are not ours.
And sometimes I think even if we are not able to ask the hard question, allow someone else to bring the question into the table and stop shaming. Because very often, and sometimes that happens in competitive places, or we shame each other rather than supporting each other. Like, okay, I didn't come up with a question, but I want to hear it, and let's advocate, and let's understand, and let's look for the opportunity to collaborate and to communicate, and the strength that we can gather together is much more strong than we can do on our own.
Well, and being open to that, right? Anytime I can be in a room with Adrienne, I'm going to glean something from that.
Right.
And it doesn't come from a place of fear or intimidation. It comes from almost going into sponge mode. Because, and the same with Raquel or any of these people that we interact with in the community, if we can come at it from a perspective of, I'm going to learn from this and I could be doing something differently and better, I mean, I think that we would be eons ahead of where we're at now. But for some reason, individuals get so defensive and pull in rather than, that term that's used a lot, lean into change or lean into being a part of the solution. And it isn't easy, and it does take work, and it takes time, but it's listening and providing a space that there are perspectives out there that are different from mine, and I could be doing something to be a part of that solution.
And it doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. It matters, because mentorship is cyclical. It's a circle of I gained so much from the individuals that I've mentored in the past.
Yes,
I gained from them probably more than they gained from me.
Absolutely.
But I think so many times we go in with this ego and we have to learn to try to get our ego out of the way.
Being a mentor, when you just said that, made me think of really great advice I've been given. You don't mentor somebody with the idea of making them into who you are. You mentor someone to broaden their horizons and help them along their journey.
Right.
And that ego really has to be set aside to have a successful mentor-mentee relationship. And those have been some of the best. When you can get out of this is what I would do. Well, you're not me. Right. So you share your experiences and provide insight on what their path looks like. And it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, because you can't be the person that is mentoring you, and you shouldn't. You want to be your authentic self.
Absolutely.
And know yourself and get that self-awareness and live your truth. But you can't do that by modeling someone else. You have to figure out. And I think that as parents, it's important for us to allow our children to fail.
Yes.
So that they can, because we learn through our mistakes, right?
Absolutely.
Our most valuable lessons stick with us. And allowing them to have those failures along the way. And I think I don't know, when I was, working at the university there for so many years, it just seemed like the parents had gone from helicopter to drone. And hovering to constant, just let them find their own North Star. And I think that you probably see some of that in the work that you guys do.
For sure.
Absolutely. But I think it gets back to the questions, asking these questions, and not only of each other. We we really have to do a lot of introspection and internal analysis. So even in the work I do, occasionally somebody will tell me I'm racist or sexist or homophobic or whatever. And the initial response inside of me is like, what? Are you kidding me? But then I have to remember, this is about the experience they are having with me, not who I think I am. And so then the response has to become, help me understand what I said or did that makes you think that. That goes from literally shutting everything down to opening everything up. And it's being willing to be wrong.
Absolutely.
And taking responsibility.
And ownership for it.
But
I think that's absolutely something that at least the Athenas that I know model very well, the ability to say, did I do something wrong? Hey, let me sit back and reflect on this. What could I have done differently? And that is a level of modeling and collaboration and engagement that we don't get every day. And so I'm grateful that I get to see that from these amazing women and from so many other women who I won't even get a chance to meet, but who are doing that same work in their environments.
I cannot think of a greatest opportunity. I mean, for me to become an Athena, it was like I had access to this wonderful group of women that do exemplify the principle of the Athena, and I did feel like a little sponge. Like, I want to learn, I want to know, I want to tell me about you, tell me what you do, and to see their power and to see, and I think that the greatest thing is they did make me feel like, oh, come along, Will. And like Adrienne said, it's just the Athenas that I know have been not just another Athenas, but have been mentors and friends. And all of a sudden I have this backing, this group of amazing women that are together and they are including me. And it's just been such an amazing thing. And I think in general in life, when you have the attitude of, I want to learn, that takes you to so many places. So
it opens the door.
And learning about other people that are different than yourself. And cultures. And we gain so much as individuals when we open ourselves up that way.
Absolutely.
I was really drawn to Martha and how this whole leadership model was created back in a small chamber of commerce in the early 80s, late 70s. And she is someone that when I read Becoming Athena, I talk a lot about igniting that fire and what she did and why she did it. We talked before about even how the statue was designed by a woman and the idea that what gets celebrated in a community gets cultivated there. So that it has been very impactful to have not only before I had the amazing opportunity to participate as an Athena, to be involved in the program and the interviews and to listen to all these amazing stories and to read the book and the principles and why that leadership model was put into place from a woman all those years ago that saw a need and recognized for females, we needed to create something and a model, not just an award. I think what attracts me so much to Athena is it's not just a trophy. It is
so much more.
A lifestyle and something that in any leadership book you read, it has all the principles there, just maybe said in a different language. And so I don't know how you can't be a magnet to the Athena leadership model and the women and the male advocates along the way and the chambers that help make that possible. And individuals like you that are so heavily involved in the movement. Athena is something that has changed my personal and professional career for the rest of my life.
That's incredible.
I would have to agree. And you have the amazing
I fourth. It's forever changed me too.
And it's so different. First, you have the experience of becoming the Athena, and that is amazing. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I kept asking, "Are you sure?" Like it was.
I think all Athenas have that question.
Well, the imposter.
And then after the year, that at the beginning you think, oh my gosh, it's going to be a long time, but then it's just such a short time.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, you get to experience a completely different path when you get to be a part of the next Athena.
Yeah.
And it gives me chills when we were in the meeting Sarah became the Athena for this year, and our chair said, "We have an Athena." Oh, what? Oh, it just gives me. I just felt so empowered.
What an incredible celebration.
What an amazing
it is a great celebration.
And it was just such a wonderful. And every nominee was deserving. But to be able to come and to see this new Athena, it was just a completely different experience from being the Athena, but both were so enriching. It's just been such an amazing opportunity.
Well, and it's something that our community really gets behind. Like speaking from this Chamber of Commerce perspective, it's one of our highest attended events when we celebrate the Athena.
That's incredible.
And there are a lot of companies that support, that we have a lot of male and female advocates that go to that event to hear the story.
Yeah.
And they want their employees and their workforce to see this is something that as a community we identify as critical work and celebrating all the good that's happening in our community.
Absolutely.
So I'm grateful for the experience of the 900 plus nonprofits in the area and all the amazing individuals, Athena or not, the fact that it is something that our community recognizes as important and valuable speaks very highly to where we're at. And it's a place I'm proud to be a part of.
Yeah, it says a lot about Ogden and Weber.
Well, I learned only much later the person who nominated me for the ATHENA Award was a person who works in city government. His name's Bill Cook. He's amazing. We worked on a community university project for 5 years together. And he nominated me for this award. And I was like, I didn't know you saw me this way.
Pretty impactful.
Yeah.
And it was stunning for me to know that people see me in alignment with these principles. And as a person who's committed to the social fabric. And that is a game changer.
Well, and Martha has talked, we've had multiple conversations about how individuals, when they receive the award, they're like, I don't see myself as this. This is not how I see myself. And it's like, oh, wow, maybe I need to lean into that a little bit more.
Yes.
And
it's a bit overwhelming.
It is. It is.
Absolutely.
I think you used the term earlier, that imposter syndrome.
Yes.
That it almost feels uncomfortable to accept the fact that someone might see us in that light. And I feel that the whole model, once you get past the shock, for those that I had the perspective before going in of being in love with Martha and the Athena leadership model, but for lots, they might not have heard of that. And once they go through that whole process, I have seen many Athenas go through a trajectory, shock, awe, I'm all in, and then living it for then on.
All right, let's buckle up, let's go.
Yeah, let's do it.
What can we do?
That's what the Athenas are.
And I can feel that energy from your community here, just, over lunch and just talking with all the amazing local leaders here. It is so inspiring. And you, why do you think that imposter syndrome still exists for so many women?
I think that from my perspective, if I choose to agree with that, then maybe that makes me conceited, or I might have a sense of guilt. Or if I'm worthy of that, I'm saying someone else isn't. The shame part of it, that I think as a society we have, you can't celebrate yourself, or it puts you into the narrative of, oh, she is way too on her high horse. And that, I think, is intimidating and doesn't feel right. If it maybe feels like I'm not celebrating everyone else if I'm celebrating myself, that fill your cup first. or put your oxygen mask on first before doing others. So I think that's, at least from my perspective, when I've talked to Athenas and my own even experience of it, it's a little bit of that.
I think that is that culture of shaming ourselves and not accepting, not learning to accept who we are. But how can we become Athena if we don't start by having compassion and acceptance for ourselves first?
That celebration
so
of
we
ourselves.
can absolutely accept others.
Yes.
But this is another place where representation matters. And if you have never seen yourself or someone who looks like you in those roles, engaging with those networks and making decisions and having input and insight that people lean into, it's very hard to believe you could be that person.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that's still a struggle that we see happening with some of our young girls and young women today, is helping people understand that. We're starting to see some of that with young men as well, who are like, I don't know if I can do this. And that's an important conversation. Why aren't we having that conversation?
Right.
Absolutely.
About how you can.
Right. Supporting that.
For
Right.
sure. Well, I could talk with you all day long about this, but I know that you all have a schedule to keep. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today. And I have absolutely enjoyed getting to know all of you and looking forward to coming back and learning more about all the impacts that you're having. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for coming.
You.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And check us out at ATHENAinternational.org.